Gather round is only a couple of days away. It's a big game against Sydney with some of our stars. Let's look into it. So before we do get into it, this match preview is sponsored by Swish. Swish, if you don't know, you can get your favorite Collingwood stars to do shout-outs for you. If that's an engagement, a friend's birthday, Mother's Day is coming up soon. Nick Dacos, Jack Chris, Scott Pernabry, Josh Dacos. The list goes on and on. Follow the link down below to get 10% off or use code SWOOPLUKE at checkout from Swish. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Now, let's get into this big match preview. Gather round, it's our home game at Adelaide Oval against the Swans, which, you know, there's always that thing where we never play the Swans in Melbourne. Obviously, we played them for the first time in Melbourne last year when we unfurled the flag in round 2, and we got smashed there, but that was the first game in like 13 years. So now our first home game against the Swans, again, is at Adelaide Oval. Even though it's going to be really fun, I'm driving up to Adelaide Oval, so I leave on Thursday morning. I'm going to go to about 4 or 5 or so games. I can't really remember. I think it's about 4. It's going to be so much fun. Last year I did gather round. I think I got there for the day before the Collingwood game, slept, went to the Collingwood game, and then left the day after. So I didn't really get to experience Adelaide. I get to experience Adelaide from Thursday until Monday morning. So I'm so keen. And I'm so keen to see what the boys can do without, like I said at the start, some of our stars. Now let's look to Sydney first. So Sydney last week dispatched of North Melbourne pretty easily. North, I tipped North, so I thought, you know, I was going to say the Telstra Dome. Wow, that's a callback. At Marvel Stadium, I thought North were going to, you know, show up Sydney. Sydney haven't been performing that well, but Sydney did so good against North, and you're probably just saying, oh, it's North. But what Sydney were able to do, they've got this sort of press when it's in their forward line. They restricted the Kangaroos. The Roos couldn't get out, right? When it was in their defense, the Roos could not get out. Sydney had this press going where the only way the Roos could get it out was to kick it long and outside of the 50, and then Sydney players were there to sweep up. What Sydney try and do, they try and restrict your movement, your speed, your ball movement. And the only time the Kangaroos did look okay was when they were getting handballs through that sort of press. And we know that Collingwood's game is that chaotic, fast, handballing game. So it's gonna be an immovable object and an unstoppable force coming up against each other. So like I said, Sydney do really well in the press. They're ranked pretty high for least opponent tackles per game, so they're not letting the opponents tackle them. Least opponent clearances per game and least opponent hit-outs per game. So they're ranked 2 to 4 between all of those stats. So they're just really good defensively. They just couldn't put it on the scoreboard, and started the season really slowly. But against the Roos, they got it inside their 50 over 50 times. They restricted the Roos to under 40. The one thing that was a little bit interesting in that game was the tackles. Now, Sydney only had 49 tackles and the Kangaroos only had 48 tackles. So it wasn't a high tackling game. We know that last week Collingwood had 85 or so tackles against Carlton. So that's what we have to bring. We can't let these Sydney players just run around and do what they want when there's no pressure applied. Like the Kangaroos didn't apply any pressure. They were slow. They were lethargic. So that's what we've just got to get out of that Sydney game. It was the usual suspects for Sydney doing their usual things. Amadi kicked 4. Hayward kicked 4 after a slow start to this season. Riley Bice, who is one of the mature ages, comes in, 26 disposals, best on ground. Jake Lloyd, Rowbottom. It's these guys that's Heaney. It's these guys that are just doing the job. They just go and get the job done. No one had over 30 disposals from the Swans. They just share the load and they got the job done. It was like a 65-point win against the Roos. Now, the Pies, on the other hand, we beat Carlton. It was a scrappy game in the rain, right? So, of course, it's going to be super scrappy. The raining on and off, ball's really wet. But we did what we needed to do. We restricted Carlton to, I know, you can say, oh, it's just North Melbourne, and oh, it's just Carlton. But we restricted Carlton. We knew we could break them, is what Josh Dacos said. And break them we did, especially in that second half, especially in that third quarter, where we just got the game on our terms. what Carlton needed to do really was stop our running game, and they just couldn't do it. So what I suspect from the Swans is they will be stopping that running game with exactly the blueprint that they had for the Kangaroos. One of the commentators called it Cox's cage, right, where they just cage in the midfielders, the defenders, the forwards. They do whatever they need to do. The only way we're going to get out is we keep taking the game on. If we start playing this, not that we do, right, but the Giants pushed us into this game. But if we start playing that start and stop, short kick, short kick, short kick here, there, that slow game, we're no good at that, right? I think we're ranked at least in the bottom 4 for that slow kick and mark game. And we're ranked I think it's in the top 3 for that run and carry, that chaotic, fast game. So the only way to get out of this sort of Cox's cage, if you will, is just to break lines. We have to break lines, and we have to pressure them when they get it. We know what happened towards the end of last season. Had we have beaten Sydney last season, we would have made finals. Alas, it wasn't meant to be. So we can have a little bit of that redemption coming through. One battle that I'm really, really excited for is Darcy Cameron versus Brodie Grundy, ex-Collingwood and ex-Sydney Swan guys going up against each other. Darcy Cameron is having a season to remember. He might even finish in the top 3 of the Copeland again. Remember, he finished second last season. Grundy had one of his best games of the year, or probably his best game of the year against the Roos and against Tristan Sherry, who is, a premier ruckman. But on the other hand, Darcy Cameron absolutely blanketed $1.6 million man Tom DeConey. So that's going to be really interesting because we know that both of these guys, high clearance getters, high contested possessions for ruckmen. They are that sort of midfielder. What we love about Darcy Cameron is he pushes into the back, can be that intercepting marker and let our halfbacks run, and they have, that notion that, okay, Darcy Cameron's at the back, so if it does fly over us, we've got a big man marking the ball. So it's just going to be interesting. Can we nullify what Grundy can do? And I think we can, because Darcy Cameron, he's just, and I think it was John Ralph that said it a couple of days ago, he is fast becoming at least a top 3 premier ruckman in the competition. So that's going to be really, really interesting. Another one, do they tag Nick Dacos? Of course they do. It's about shaking that Nick Dacos tag. And I want to see that Hydra mentality. If they blanket Nick Dacos, which, they do, and I think it's Rowbottom that usually does that, and they've done that for the last couple of years, we need other people to pop up. We see Ned Long, he's going to play a full game. So does that mean, Ned Long is going to be that crash and bash, protect Nick Dacos at all costs? Because there hasn't been, from what I can see, anyone sort of flying the flag and protecting Nick Dacos from these tags. Maybe I just can't see it because I'm at the game, and maybe it comes up a little bit better on TV, so you can let me know down below. But I haven't seen anyone really, flying the flag for Nick. So that's going to be a little bit interesting. It's also what our defenders are going to do. Now, Carlton, they only had Curnow, Kemp, and not really much else. Lewis Young, but, this week we're going to have Amadi, Hayward, and there's talks of Logan McDonald coming back. He kicked 3 goals in the VFL over the weekend, so he'll definitely come back in. So it's going to be, the big boys, the Twin Towers are going to be there. Billy Frampton obviously keeps getting the gig. Darcy Moore is playing the best that he's played in 12 months. Jeremy Howe as well, and Darcy Cameron can push back. So I think we've got them covered there. But again, it's always scary when you're coming up against these very agile, tall forwards, and we don't have that big stopgap. So I'm hoping Billy Frampton can blanket, who does he go to? An Armadi or a McDonald? But blanket them like he did Curnow. Curnow only kicked 1 goal last week. And that's on Darcy Moore. That's on Billy Frampton doing an absolutely fantastic job. The biggest question is who replaces our injured stars and suspended stars? So Houston, Schultz, and Jordan De Goey. We've talked about this extensively over the last couple of days. I do think now it's Ed Allen, Will Hoskin-Elliott, Lockie Sullivan. They all come in. That's our 3 changes. Ned Long goes into the 22. Will Hoskin-Elliott can play off the halfback if we need him to. Lockie Sullivan, who played a full game in the VFL, goes onto the bench as the sub. And then Ed Allen will replace Lockie Schultz. Not position for position, but that's the guy that he comes in for. I want to see Ed Allen and Ed Long get a full game together. I think that's going to be really exciting because they are the future of this club. You only have to go back maybe 1 or 2, I think it was last week even, before the Carlton game, where Craig McRae came out and said, Ned Long could be that Pendlebury replacement, and I say replacement in quotation marks because you can't replace Pendlebury, but can play a similar role, not to an A+ standard, but a similar role. And, you know, last week we saw Pendlebury line up at half forward a couple of times, which Craig McRae did allude to, where they're going to try him in, you know, different positions. So get ready for a little bit of experimenting. I don't think there's going to be any selection surprises. I would like to see TJ get a go. And there was whispers that I was hearing at training that maybe he was going to, but I just don't think he will. But that's something to keep an eye on in the next coming weeks. All in all, I think this is going to be the game of, or one of the games of the round. You know, if we can go up to Easter Thursday against Brisbane 4-1, I think that is absolutely incredible. I think Sydney are really gettable. They're really, really gettable at this time. I know they beat Melbourne, North Melbourne, and they smashed them. But that slow start, and they're coming up against a team that we've got the fire in our belly now. We've absolutely got the fire in our belly. 3 wins on the trot. It won't be an easy game. I think it's going to be a really, really close game. I'm saying the Pies by only 8 points, but a win's a win. I'll take 8 points as long as it's not under 6 points because I can't do a defib heart situation anymore. And my big call, I really need our forwards to fire. Bobby Hill, Beau McCreary, Jamie Elliott, they've all had quiet weeks. I need them to kick at least... I need Bobby Hill to kick 2 goals. I need Jamie Elliott to kick 2 goals. I'd love Beau to kick at least 1, but be that bull in the middle. Maybe that's something that we do. We send Beau McCreary into the middle because at training these last couple of sessions, he has been training with the midfielders quite a lot. And I know they're experimenting still. So that's got to be, you know, an interesting little tidbit if we need to unleash that speed and that real bull into the middle. But again, Lachie Schultz isn't there. So you can imagine Beau McCreary playing that Lachie Schultz role where he's going right down to half back, right up to half forward and just running 50-metre arc to 50-metre arc. So it's going to be really interesting to see, but I am so bloody excited. Are you going to gather round? Let me know down below. But until then, like, comment, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets, and until next time, double shackers. I'll swoop you later.